What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome to the latest Geo Recruiting Show. Zach Alubday here with Keith Niebuhr and Corey Benner to preview Florida's final official visit weekend of June. The Gators having another weekend of double-digit visitors scheduled to have more than a dozen on campus this weekend. We'll preview those guys and let you know what to look forward to and who's in the running also for some of these guys. Obviously, a lot of names that we can start with. I'll throw it to you, Keith, and who do you want to kick off this weekend with?
I mean, I think everything starts with Vernell Brown III. I mean, you're talking about a Gator legacy. I know he doesn't like that to be brought up, that part, over and over again, because he wanted to be treated like a normal recruit. But he is a Gators legacy. His dad obviously was a very good player. His granddad was a very good player. Great uncles were very good players. There's a lot of orange and blue blood running through Vernell's veins, and he's a rising senior at receiver, 4-star receiver, we should say, and top 50 national recruit at Orlando Jones. And it's just an outstanding prospect. One, you don't want to lose him because he's a legacy and you really want him. But two, forget about all that. He's just really good. He's a slot receiver in the mold of, I think, ex-Gator or former Gators player Brandon Powell. I've heard some comparisons. They're just a really dynamic player with the ball in his hands, and he can do so many things. And he's also a smart guy, highly intelligent. And, you know, if you can land a guy like this, you know, he could be one of the faces of the program in the coming years. So the talent is there, the personality's there, the IQ's there, the legacy factor's there. They got to hold off FSU, who will visit next weekend. He was just at Miami, and then Ohio State's also in the mix. But Florida's right there. And I think he's their number one overall target right now in this class, if you ask me.
Yeah, no doubt. Corey, who's some of the headliners that kind of stick out to you this weekend?
Yeah, they kind of go off that. I think Hilton Stubbs, you know, the USC commit out of Jacksonville manager and a big-time safety. And a guy Florida's obviously very familiar with. They've been pursuing him for almost 2 years. And when he did commit to USC earlier this year, it was one of the first shockers for the cycle. Florida was positioned the best for a number of months. Even just before that commitment, he says relationships with the best at Florida. His best relationship with the head coach was with Billy Napier. So when you look at that, Florida was positioned very well, but you know, he's committed to USC. He just went on his OV, I think on the 31st out to Los Angeles, loved it. If you're a USC fan, you read all that and you see the returns on that, you feel very confident. But you know, now the in-state schools will get their shot, and there'll be the more recent visits, which I think will be key. The USC visit was the first, so I think for Florida, Miami, and Florida State, now they're gearing up to kind of be more fresh in his mind. With Florida probably still having the best shot at flipping him, in my opinion. I know there's still some optimism in Gainesville, but the big thing now is he wants to see Florida win. Early on the cycle, before he committed to USC, you would ask him. He would always kind of pinpoint relationships and familiarity and just feeling at home for what he's looking for in a school. Now, the second time around being committed to USC, you know, as far as Florida, he wants to say, I want to see them win now. So the pressure's kind of on Florida. The relationships are there. I think obviously just kind of going into this weekend, I'm sure the OV will go very well, but I think there's still kind of a wait and see approach with Florida to see how they perform in the fall.
No doubt. And obviously this is an important weekend in terms of making a statement with a lot of guys that are coming to campus. We had a story about that this week at Gators Online. A lot of coverage previewing this weekend. We'll have a lot of coverage throughout this weekend as well. And if you guys aren't subscribed to Gators Online, make sure you use the UF code UF1 when you go to sign up, and you can get 2 months of premium access for just $1. So make sure that you take advantage of that. This is the last official visit weekend, but also Friday Night Lights is coming up as well next week with Florida's last 7-on-7 camp. So a lot of coverage still to come. So make sure that you guys are locked in, and a lot of questions that we have going into this weekend. You know, we talked about some important official visitors that Florida needs to make a statement with. Along those lines, who are some guys that stand out to you guys, you know, from that storyline?
Yeah, as far as guys Florida has to make a statement with, I mean, I'll just start with Tavion Wallace, the linebacker out of Georgia. So he grew up a big-time Florida fan. That's a school he loved throughout his childhood, but obviously with most kids that go into recruiting, they kind of separate that fandom. They kind of take a business-like approach. Now he's committed to Florida, and he's not committed to Florida State. Florida State's the leader, and they have a large margin over Florida. Florida's a number 2 school, and I think they have made up ground in recent weeks. But I still think it's going to take quite a bit to kind of overtake Florida State, because then he goes to Tallahassee after this for his OV. And we all know, judging off, you know, the red carpet treatment, you know, FSU is very familiar with. So, you know, coming off that Florida visit, they're going to really kind of roll it out for him to make sure they have him in that class. But I think Florida has a real opportunity this weekend, but that's one guy, in my opinion, that Florida kind of has the opportunity to rise with. That's important.
Keith, who do you feel like Florida needs to make a statement with this weekend?
Man, I can go through every single one of these guys real quick almost. I mean, Hilton Stubbs committed to Southern Cal, probably going to watch Florida play this fall, but they've got to kind of get back in his conscious. They've got to get on his brain. So this is an important week because this may be the last time Florida sees him until the fall. Bryce Fitzgerald's an intriguing 4-star safety from Miami. Florida's in his top 3 or top 4. FSU's in the mix. There's some other schools, but we don't hear much about his recruitment. Some people think Florida's got a pretty good chance here. So we're going to learn more about that. Cedric Works is a guy nobody talks about because we haven't been able to get a hold of him. He's a 4-star edge from Ohio that is looking at Penn State, Kentucky, Florida, and some other schools. And Florida, we really don't know where he is on the edge board. We know they want to take one more commitment. We don't know where he has Florida ranked. So those are some guys. And then you've got the 2 Auburn commits, Tavares Dice, the 4-star offensive tackle. Can Florida flip him? Auburn seems to feel really good right now. Then you've got the 4-star defensive lineman committed to Auburn, Zach, and that's Malik Autry. And gosh, he's visited Florida 7 or 8 times, but he recently visited Southern Cal, and Southern Cal felt good coming out of that visit. So, Zach, that leads you to believe, man, maybe this is just the guy that tells schools what they want to hear. I don't know. Or legitimately, he's looking around. So there's so many question marks going into this visit. Lagonza Hayward is a 4-star safety. Florida's got 3 4-star safeties, and he's the one that people have talked about the least amount. He's from Georgia. Going into the summer, Tennessee led, then Georgia led. Now we think South Carolina may lead. That's all just in the past few weeks. So this is Florida's chance to make a move with him. So there's a lot of interest here. We haven't even talked about a tight end, a 2024 offensive tackle that Florida may try to bring in for the previous class. There's a lot going on this weekend.
No doubt. And you mentioned some of the potential flips there. Is there, what do you guys think about that? There are obviously the 2 Auburn commits, a UCF commit coming to town as well, and then in subs as well. Is there one guy that you feel like Florida might have the best chance at flipping at this point going into the weekend?
I'll go first on this one, Corey. I think it's Stubbs, Hilton Stubbs, the USC commit, because I think as he gets closer to signing days from Jacksonville, that distance is going to become an issue. Now, he has been to Southern Cal 3 times, so it's not like he's only been out there once. So, but Florida, if they do anything on the field this fall, and that remains to be seen, they got to go out and do it. I think they'll have an excellent chance to flip him. So, to me, that's the guy to watch. But Corey may have a different take there.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go with Stubbs too. I just think when in-home, like he said, when in-home visit starts and it comes to decision-making and you gear up and say, man, do I want to go all the way across the country? I mean, that's a thought, man. When it comes on the crunch, you're signing, those thoughts go through your mind. And I just think, like he said, that comfort level, that familiarity at Florida is going to help. Obviously, like we noted, he wants to see Florida win. But how important is that going to be when it comes down to decision making? So that's one guy we're keeping an eye on. And obviously, Caden Peening, the UCF commit, who's coming in town this weekend out of Cincinnati. He grew up from Orlando, and I think actually flipping him from UCF is going to be pretty difficult. I know he's very happy with that commitment. He had an OV there on the 31st and raved about his experience there. Florida wants 2 tight ends, but I think the one thing keeping them alive in this race is that relationship with Russ Callaway. I know we kind of knock on the wood this all the time, but he's a great relationship builder, and that's part of the reason Florida's involved with about a handful of tight end targets right now. And a lot of it's because of those relationships. So he's one guy I'm kind of keeping an eye on, but I think overall, as the months go by, I think it's Hilton Stubbs for sure.
Now, sometimes when we have these official visit previews, we talk about the Florida commit guys last. Everyone wants to know about the targets, but this is the big visit weekend for Clark. I mean, this is one of Florida's top commits. The staff loves him, and you guys know other schools are not stopping their pursuit of him. How important is this weekend for Florida with Clark and just locking him up as a pledge?
I guess I'll go here. The thing with him is he's super tight with running backs coach Jabbar Jalouk at Florida. And I think as long as Jalouk is at Florida, it's going to be hard for anybody to pluck Waltez Clark of Tampa Plant away. It's a big Gator school, too, as high school. And I know Aaron Murray and Orson Charles went there. But when you look at Tampa Plant, that whole area is just, it's every kid in that class is going to UF pretty much. Pete Alonso went there. Jacques Caglione went there. I mean, it's just it's a Florida high school. So I think that's going to be important to hold on to him. And the relationship with Jabbar Jalouk, again, being the the key to that whole thing. Now, UCF is the one school to watch. They're sort of playing the long game. And what they're hoping for is that Florida has a rough season. And by the way, they play Florida at the Swamp too. They're hoping Florida has a rough season, and then something happens to the staff, and then they can come in at the last minute and pull him away. Now, he was supposed to officially visit UCF last weekend, and that got shut down pretty quick. I don't know exactly what happened there, but I don't think Florida really wanted that visit to happen. However, we still think there is the potential for him to officially visit UCF this fall. But right now, it all looks good for Florida to hold on to Waltez Clark.
Good stuff. And then obviously, we mentioned Vernell Brown at the top. Corey, you put out a piece this week at Gators Online about, 3 questions coming into this weekend. And one of them was, are we not talking enough about Florida and Donovan, the receiver from IMG Academy? I can't pronounce that last name if you want to go for it. But are we not talking enough about that? And what could come out of this weekend with him?
Yeah, no, I think obviously with his recruitment, Florida got involved very early, right? So he was a guy, he moved down from Illinois to IMG. Florida was one of the first schools in the South that jumped in the mix, and they've had him on campus about a handful of times. But over the last year, he's really kind of emerged as a natural recruit. But he was one of those guys last cycle when Jarrett Gibson would come on campus. He'd be one of those guys as an underclassman you kind of see at Florida here and there. Now that he's in the spotlight, all those things kind of come to mind. He's been to Florida a lot. He obviously likes that DJ Lagway's on the roster. He's intrigued by that. And obviously Florida is telling him, hey, you can come in and be a big part. You can make an instant impact. There's been a lot of attention on USC, Washington. Missouri gets the last shot next week. I think they don't get talked about enough. But I think from a familiarity standpoint, Florida's probably the one that's probably in the best spot from that standpoint. I think this weekend he'll be reminded of that. There's some IMG guys on the roster, obviously. He's been to Gainesville, like I said, a handful of times. I think all that familiarity with him, I'm now living in Florida IMG, I think that'll all help over time. And I know we mentioned the whole proximity thing with Hilton Stubbs. I don't think with him being an IMG, he's from Illinois, I don't think that's going to be a huge issue here. But I think Florida kind of is the dark horse for him, and we'll see how this weekend goes.
Yeah, it's actually pronounced Alubday, Donovan Alubday. And I'm not as optimistic. I'm not as optimistic as Corey on this one. I mean, for a while, Florida really saw USC and Washington as the 2 biggest threats. And now a lot of the chatter is about USC and Missouri. And he loves that Missouri's got a 5-star quarterback in the class, Matt Zollers. And obviously Florida just signed him a 5-star quarterback last cycle in DJ Lagway. But he's kind of feeling those 2 schools going into this visit. I just feel like Florida's got a lot of work to do here. I think Florida's playing from behind right now on that one, but we'll see. I mean, that's what these official visits are for. Historically, Florida's done pretty well during these official visits. We just haven't seen the results in terms of commitments this year, but I don't know. I'm not saying that the visits are worse, but they just haven't led to anything yet that we know of. Of course, it's not always about just landing the commitment now. It's about laying the groundwork to land them down the road. But to me, it sounds like, in talking with Chad Simmons of On3, or one of our national analysts, that Florida's got some real work to do there with Donovan Alubday.
Good stuff, Keith. And you kind of led me right into my next question, which is the fact that Florida has not had any guys pop during the first 2 visit weekends. By all accounts, the trips have gone really well. Prospects have spoke highly of the experience that they've had at Florida, but just nobody's popped yet. And sometimes, hey, that's going to happen when you're targeting high elite prospects. They're going to go through their official visit schedule before they make a decision. That being said, Corey, one of your other questions this week was, could the Gators have somebody commit this weekend? What do you guys think is the likelihood of that, and who are some guys that could potentially pop?
I think right now when you look at this list, I mean, I hate to be a downer, but like this list doesn't show as many immediate guys who I think could pop. I mean, Bryce Fitzgerald, I think he said good. He grew up a big-time Florida fan. That was his dream school. It doesn't say too much. I don't think he's one that will pop at the moment just because, there's Florida State's involved. He's going to Miami next weekend. Caden Peening maybe is one that kind of comes to mind if the experience is that good and he wants to play in the SEC, that type of thing. I think the one kid, I'm not going to say commit with this, but just to add on with Cedric Works, he grew up, his dad's from Florida, and from what he's told me in the past, his dad's a huge Florida fan, and he said huge in caps. So that's kind of one thing, his recruitment. Penn State's involved. You have Cincinnati kind of near home back in Ohio. But I don't know, maybe this experience kind of reminds the family. The dad loves it there. He loves it there. And because remember last cycle too, the Auburn commit. Keith, you got to help me here. The kid that flipped to Auburn from Florida did DN last cycle.
Jamonte Waller, Morris Williams. Morris Williams.
Yeah, Morris Williams, when he committed, it was kind of out of left field, and it was kind of, we didn't really know much about him. This recruitment kind of reminds me of that in a sense as far as that, but we'll see. He does have family ties to the state of Florida. We'll see if that helps.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you look at this list, and it would have to be – people are always like, well, what would be the surprise? What would be what could be a – well, if it's a surprise, and I don't know what it's going to be. But, I mean, I'm just looking at the list, and it's hard to see any of these guys doing anything this weekend unless – I put him way down the list of likely commits from this group because I think he's solid to UCF, and I don't know where he sits on the tight end board at Florida. But, yeah, I mean, if they made a huge push for Caden Pining, maybe. I think it's more about laying the groundwork. Maybe Works, because Cedric Works is the edge from Ohio because his recruitment's sort of been unpredictable. I don't know. Like, again, Penn State's involved. We said Kentucky, which does pretty well in Ohio. They recruit fairly well up there.
Is it hard to get guys to commit now on campus because of NIL and?
Yeah, I think so. In July is supposed to be like the big visit month. You know what I mean? But, the reality of it is a lot of these guys want to get all their NIL ducks in a row.
Yeah, they want to hear all their offers.
They want to get all their visits in. Now, you say that, and Florida's only got 5 commitments, and a lot of schools have 2 and 3 times that. So, is Florida being more selective than usual? I don't think so. I think it's the kids are being more selective because they want to see more of Florida. Look, they're coming off 3 straight losing seasons. I mean, we can. That's the elephant in the room. Let's just be honest about this. You know what I mean? But they're in it with a lot of guys. And by the way, we should point out there has been a commitment in June. It just wasn't from the official visits. And that was 4-star 2026 quarterback Will Griffin. And also Florida's in really good position for another 4-star 2026 player. That's safety Jalen Waters of Armwood High School down in the Tampa Bay area. But just from the official visit standpoint, I feel like they've laid the groundwork pretty well on a lot of these guys, but they still want to take other visits. And again, kind of process everything. And a lot of these guys have already set summer visits. Like Vernell Brown is going to decide this summer. Now Hilton Stubbs is already committed. And then he's going to ride it out. Bryce Fitzgerald, I can't remember when he's going to announce. Tavian Wallace, 4-star linebacker, I think he's going to announce on July 2nd. I think Lagonza Hayward's probably going to announce this summer. They're all probably going to announce this summer. But they want to have their special moments and all that stuff. And again, get in all those visits.
No doubt.
Well, hey, Zach, just to add, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, there could be a guy we're not talking about here. That's the 2024 recruit that's coming to town.
Yeah, I was saving him for then. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get into him. Jazar Jackson. So an offensive tackle, but we'll save him.
And what were we going to add, Corey?
No, I was going to say Keith and I kind of hinted at this several months ago, too, after last year's season. People asked us, do you think Florida's going to have a big summer like they did last year? And I didn't think so just because of last season. It's kind of a wait-and-see approach with a lot of this. I mean, every school can be an off-season all-star, and Florida is one of those schools that can recruit with the best of them during the off-season. But I do think, like he said, too, a lot of these kids want to take their OVs, and a lot of them have scheduled commitment dates for July. That's part of it. But like with the Hilton Stubbs and a few other kids, I'm sure there is a little bit of hesitancy as far as kind of what's Florida going to look like in the fall, and that's just the reality of it.
No doubt. And, we've talked about this each show that we've previewed an official visit weekend for the Gators. And I'm going to ask you guys this as well. We've got a story about it on Gators Online that you can go check out. I mean, we have so many previews about this weekend. You guys can read a lot about what's going to happen on campus. But who are going to be the most likely June 14th official visitors to sign with the Gators? The story this week at Gators Online. We're still obviously months away from signing day. We're probably weeks away from a lot of these guys making their decisions. But you guys have already put out your mock class. You guys have a feel for what this could look like. As you look ahead and think about signing day, which guys on this official visitors list do you feel like could end up in Florida's class heading into this weekend? Keith, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we start with the guy that's committed, Waltez Clark. I mean, we still have to mention him because other schools are still recruiting him. So to me, he's number one. I really like where Florida sits with Vernell Brown. I mean, he's gone through this whole recruitment. He's seen what and heard what all these other schools have to offer. But I feel like Florida is going to just roll out the red carpet for him this weekend and let him know you're not just a legacy man. You are the guy. You're the guy that this program needs to go to the next level from this class. So that's a guy. Hilton Stubbs, the 4-star safety, I think is the other guy. And then after that, there's a lot of unknowns, but that's what these visits are for. We're going to learn a lot more about Bryce Fitzgerald, who has Florida in his top 3 to 4 right now. We're going to learn more about the edge, Cedric Works from Ohio. We're going to find out once and for all, I hope, if Florida has a chance to flip the 2 kids from Auburn, Tavares Dice, the offensive tackle, and Malik Autry, the defensive lineman. And then also right now, Tavian Wallace. I mean, we thought it was Florida State battle. Corey mentioned that earlier. Georgia made a significant move last week. They are all in on this young man. So we're going to get some clarity on that one. This weekend, it's not just about getting commitments and laying the groundwork. Now you have that third layer, which is it's about getting some clarity. You know what I mean, Zach? But the first 3 guys I mentioned, I think Florida's going to get those guys. Waltez Clark, Vernell Brown, Hilton Stubbs. We'll see. Thought they were going to get Hilton Stubbs earlier this year, and he committed to USC out of the blue. So
good stuff. Corey, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so Keith and I both put Vernell Brown in our mock class, and same type of thing. I'm not going to keep beating on it, but same type of thing. I mean, I think there's obviously legacy recruits, and then there's a different level of legacy with the amount of family connections he has to Florida. And of all the kids officially visiting this summer, I'm kind of most anxious to kind of see that one, just based off who's going to be there. I know Keith Love has details on that. And just basically the treatment he receives. So that's one kid I think overall, when it all dust settles, I think will be in Florida's class. We already talked about Hilton Stubbs, proximity, closer side day. He's another one we have kind of lean towards Florida long term. And I think Bryce Fitzgerald, I think right now Florida State, Florida, and LSU are his top 3. Miami gets the last official visit next weekend. We'll see if they can kind of regain some ground. But Florida, I know from talking to people in Gainesville, he's very much wanted at Florida. He's very high on their board. And obviously he grew up loving Florida. It was a school he liked. So I don't know if that nostalgia kind of kicks in this weekend, but I think he's one of the guys that you can make a big move with this weekend. And obviously Waltez Clark as well to go along with it.
Good stuff. And Keith teased at this a little bit earlier in the show, but the Gators might not be done yet adding to their 2024 class. A prospect has emerged, a big-time prospect. Keith, let us know about this offensive lineman that has come up on Florida's board now.
Yeah, I mean, this is just an interesting thing. That Jazair Jackson is a name pretty well known in basketball circles, AAU basketball circles. Back when he was an 8th grader, they were saying he was the next Shaq. He was already like 6'8" and 300 pounds. And he played at Bradenton IMG Academy. And then after that, ended up with Overtime Elite, which is kind of a semi-pro league, kind of like that NBA G League type thing. But now he wants to give football a try. He hasn't played football since the 8th grade. He's from San Diego, hometown of the late, great Bill Walton, I should point out. But he was a guy that, never fell out of love with football. And he has the footwork of a basketball player. So he camped at Florida State this past week. They did not offer. He camped at Florida a few days later. He says the Gators did offer. He says Georgia's offered. He says Arkansas's offered. So those are 2 pretty good offensive line schools as well. And so he's going to officially visit Florida this weekend, Georgia's the next weekend, and we'll see what happens after that. He wants to have a decision in early July. Again, he's 20. He's going to be part of the 2024 class for somewhere for one school. He's 20 years old. He's ready to go. And, he says Florida's got the lead going into this weekend. So we'll see. Now his traveling companion is his uncle who lives in Athens. Does that have an impact on this? I don't know. Yeah, you really don't know. Okay. But he visited Florida this past week, had a great time, really connected with Billy Napier, had a great visit, likes the offensive line coaches at Florida. 6'11" now, 330 pounds. Can you imagine the reach on this guy? The question is, it's not just about reach. You got to have bend, because what if you're going up against a 6'1" edge rusher that's got 13 sacks? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot that Florida has to factor into this, but I will leave that to the experts, Jonathan DeCastro and Rob Sale, the offensive line coaches, and the rest of the offensive staff. But it feels like Florida's got a good chance here. They'll know, look, it'd be a nice late addition. You can take some projects. He would be in for summer B. He'd go through fall practice. When it's a guy that's kind of a freaky body and athleticism like this, again, the 6'11", the wingspan, and then the basketball footwork, why not? You roll the dice. If it doesn't work out, these are 1-year scholarship deals anyway these days. So if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. if you have the spot. Now, the question is, I thought they didn't have a spot for.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Marlon McClain is coming in as a preferred walk-on, right?
Yeah, I mean, they could gray shirt him, or maybe maybe he does another a walk-on deal. Who knows?
Yeah, we need some clarity on that. They're not really I'll just say forthcoming with a lot of info at times. That's kind of how they operate over there in their own bubble, and that's certainly their prerogative. But yeah, you're right, Zach. Could be a gray shirt deal. Could be, I don't know.
Yeah,
but he's saying he would be there in August, though. So I think that wouldn't be.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a gray shirt. No.
So we'll see.
Another offensive lineman. They've already had 8 to the class. So, well, good stuff, fellas. Before we get out of here, I do want to address one more topic that's a little bit, off the grid of official visits, but not necessarily with the football program. It is with the basketball program. We got some surprise news this week as CJ Ingram got a visit together with the UF basketball program. We've, heard all along that he could look to play 2 sports in college. Obviously, his dad, Cornelius Ingram, played hoops on Billy Donovan's basketball team. I can't remember if he did 1 or 2 seasons, but he was definitely on the team before going with football and obviously going on to an NFL career. Guys, what was your reaction to this news, and what do you think about this potential move for CJ?
I was surprised, but not surprised. I think that's the best way to put it, because I know the kid loves basketball. And Keith and I were talking about last week. It was just kind of the way Florida loves him at wide receiver. Billy Gonzalez, from what we were told, is a guy they would want in the class. And we kind of kept looking at his OV schedule, and nothing was getting scheduled for football. And then June 14th is, obviously this weekend is a date that they're hoping to do it. And when I spoke to him, he's like, yeah, that's the plan, but I got to talk some things out. And that was just kind of, okay, talk some things out and solidify it. And that was probably had to do with basketball now. So it's going to be interesting because he's a 6'5" point guard, I believe, a combo guard. And he loves hoops. He's obviously very good at basketball too. So he has, I can kind of see why he has a difficult decision. I think deep down, maybe he likes basketball more, but maybe football long-term might be the better spot for him. But I'm surprised, but not surprised. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
I was at a 7-on-7 event last week, and Charles Power, who's our national director of rankings, said, hey, man, we're getting some rave reviews about CJ Ingram's athleticism in these AAU basketball events. Apparently, one of our national basketball recruiting writers had messaged Charles and said, you got to see this guy's dunk videos from the event that he was at. So he's a freaky athlete. He averaged over 20 points a game last season at Hawthorne High, which obviously is a small school and a small basketball program, but historically has been very good. In fact, they did actually produce a Gators player before you guys were born. A little point guard named Wendell Jenkins was from Hawthorne High, who signed with Norm Sloan's Gators back in the day. So he's a special athlete. He's got some special skills. I guess the question always is with the good basketball players, man, that's a hard sport, man. Like 6'3", 6'4" guys are a dime a dozen, but maybe they're not. Maybe he's a special kind of kid. So we'll see if he gets a basketball offer from Florida. That appears to be his first love, and maybe he just says, I'm going to go the basketball route. But we don't know, and I don't think I should be pointed out, not only do we not know, I don't think Florida yet knows, the football program at least, and probably the basketball program, exactly which final path he wants to take. Does he want to do just football? Does he want to do just basketball? Does he want to do both? I don't think it'll be just football. I think it's going to, at very least, he wants to do both sports. The question is, which one's the priority? And right now it seems like maybe it's basketball.
Yeah. And I will also add too, that, and you guys know this and have reported it, there is always also the slight possibility that he was going to play quarterback or get a shot at quarterback. And I don't know if, the presence of DJ Lagway and where that position is at right now with Will Griffin, that he just doesn't see that as something that could be on the table and maybe is influencing him to go the basketball route. A lot is still to be determined, but a very interesting development in his recruitment and his athletic career with CJ Ingram. Obviously, we wish him the best of luck and hope he finds the right situation for him. And we'll see if these guys coming to Florida this weekend can find the right situation in Gainesville. Over a dozen official visitors once again. Make sure you guys stay locked with Corey and Keith's coverage. Take advantage of our promo code UF1 when you go to sign up. Get 2 months for just $1. And we will have you guys covered throughout the weekend and Friday Night Lights next week. So we'll join you guys next week for the next Geo Recruiting Show to preview that. For Keith Niebuhr and Corey Bender, I'm Zach Abaverdi. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.